Pawn to d4. Pawn to e6. Pawn to c4. Knight to f6. Knight to c3. Bishop to b4. Nimzo-Indian defense. Pawn to e3. King to g8. Knight to e2. The Reshevsky variation, an interesting sideline. Black was threatening to take the knight and damage white's pawn structure. The f1 bishop is temporarily blocked, but the knight can jump to d3 after breaking the pin with bishop to d2. Pawn to c6, restricting the c3 knight and preparing d5. Pawn to a3, repelling the bishop and preparing to expand on the queen side. Bishop to a5, keeping the pin. The bishop can land on c7 if white continues attacking him with b4. Bishop to d2. Pawn to d5. Black takes his share of the center. The pawn structure is very similar to a Slav defense. Knight to g3 unblocking the f1 bishop. Knight to d7. If white decides to develop his light-squared bishop to d3 for example, black can take on c4 and force white to move his bishop again, then black can continue with b5 attacking the bishop, just like Slav positions. Pawn to d5. White decides to take on d5 before developing the bishop. The drawback is that now black can open a line for his sleeping c8 dragon. Pawn to d5. A Carlsbad pawn structure. Black's task is to stop white from breaking on e4. In some situations, black can also try to break on c5. Observe the asymmetry of the position. Black's two bishops have open lines to point towards the king side. On the other hand, the e3 pawn is blocking the sight of white's d2 bishop. Bishop to d3. Rook to e8. King to g1. Bishop to c7. Queen to c2 mounting a battery. Knight to f8 unblocking the c8 bishop and protecting h7. The knight can later reroute to g6 or e6. Pawn to f3. Restricting the f6 knight and preparing to break with d4. Pause the video and find a plan for black. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Pawn to h5, a great move. Usually an attack on the wing is countered with an attack on the center. This time is the other way around. Rook to e1, increasing the pressure on the e-file. Note that white still can't break on e4 because black's queen is looking the d4 pawn with x-rays. Pawn to h4, repelling white's knight. Knight to h1, a Karpov-style move. The knight uses h1 as a trampoline to jump to f2. Move 15, and we have a brand new position. There are no games from here in Lichess Masters database. Knight to e6, stopping the advance of the e-pawn by attacking d4. Knight to f2. Queen to d6 mounting the battery, threatening checkmate on h2. Pawn to f4. The only way of stopping the checkmate. Black's strategy has succeeded. It will be hard for white to push the e-pawn. Black has completely equalized, and I would even say that has a slight advantage. Bishop to d7 connecting the rooks. Queen to d1. Broadening the scope of the queen, now she can also play in the king side. Pawn to a5. Grabbing space on the queen side. This move can be helpful to prevent a minority attack on the queen side. Pawn to e4. Didn't I say that e4 was not possible? White sacrifices the d4 pawn to open the position and activate his pieces. Pawn to e4. Knight to e4. Knight to e4. Knight to e4. Queen to d4. Black won a pawn, but his queen is exposed to attacks. Bishop to e3. Where should the lady go? Can she grab the b2 pawn? Black to play. What to move? If queen to b2, a obvious move. Too greedy. Materialism is a deadly sin in chess. Black is 2 pawns up, but is losing. Pause the video and find the right move. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Pawn to f5, a great move. Hitting the knight that protects c5. And the queen is trapped in the rim of the board. Queen to d5 was played in the game. Pawn to f5. Knight to f8. The knight goes back to the defence. Now the d7 bishop is protected to prevent tricks on the d file. Queen to g4. The lady comes to the attack. She's attacking h4 and pinning the g7 pawn. White is threatening a deadly fork on f6. Black to play. What to move? If knight to g6. A beautiful move. Black stops all threats by taking advantage that the f5 pawn is pinned. Threatening h2. And the position is still very sharp, with chances for both sides. Knight to h7 was played in the game. Protecting f6. Note that the d3 bishop is still en prize. Bishop to b1. Pawn to g6, a great move. Both the g6 and f5 pawns are pinned. Queen to h4. Bishop to f5. White to play. What to move? If queen to h7, a great move. Removing the defender of the forking square. A royal fork. Rook to f5 with equality. It looks like white has a better pawn structure, but black is fine after exchanging bishops on d5. Knight to g5 was played in the game, awakening the b1 dragon and threatening checkmate on h7. Black is forced to swap knights. Computers think this is a mistake, however, from a human perspective, white attack looks dangerous. Knight to g5. Rook to f5, a brilliant move. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to f5, a mistake. Queen to h6 with equality. Where should the monarch go? It looks dangerous to go to e7, and if he goes to g8, white can force the draw by repetition. Queen to d6, a dubious move. Was played in the game, keeping an eye on h2. Queen to g5. Did black lose a piece? Black to play. Pause the video and find the best move. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. I hope you found it. Rook to e3, a great move. White gets the piece back with tactics. Taking on e3 with the rook runs into a pin with bishop to b6. Queen to e3. The queen left the g6 pawn unpinned. Pawn to f5. The material is equal again, and the position has simplified, however it is still very sharp. Black has 24 minutes on the clock, and white 5 minutes. Pawn to g3. Blocking the bishop-queen battery. Pawn to f4, hitting the head of the spear. Black forces the opening of the g-file. Pawn to f4. Queen to h6, it's all about geometry. Black wants to take on f4 with the bishop instead of the queen. King to h1. The monarch feels the danger of the open g-file. Bishop to f4, threatening checkmate on h2. Queen to e2, a dubious move. Rook to d8. This is move 34 and black just finished his development. Bishop to a2. White is preparing to sacrifice on f2 to drag black's monarch to a forkable square. Queen to h4, discouraging the sacrifice on f7 by protecting the forking square on a7. Rook to f1, freeing the queen from the protection of the rook, and creating x-rays on the f-file. Pawn to b5. The two weaknesses principle. Black is not only winning on the king's side, he also has a pawn majority on the queen's side. Pawn to a4. King to f8, getting out of the open g-file. White has to be careful of the open a3 f8 diagonal. Queen to c2. Pawn to a4, a blunder. This move looks just wrong, but white has only 35 seconds to find where is the floor. Black is luring white to give the amateur check on c5. White to play. What to move? If bishop to f7, a brilliant move, sacrificing the bishop to move black's king to a forkable square. Threatening checkmate on h2. Queen to f4 with equality. The queen defends h2 just in time. Queen to c5, a blunder, was played in the game. The amateur check. Rook to d6. Black is still threatening the checkmate on h2. Queen to c2. Rook to f6. Introducing another tactical factor. The rooks are looking at each other through x-rays. Rook to f2. Bishop to h2. And white resigns. White can't take the h2 bishop because of the check on e1. And if he takes the f6 rook, black can get the piece back with a discovered check.